I almost burnt my hand trying to light that candle. Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. If you don't know me, if you're new to the channel, my name is Sierra. I love to talk about Degrassi, TV shows, anything in the realm of TV, movies, and connection to like psychology and like analyses and all that kind of stuff. That's what I do around here. But for this video, this video is a request video from Morgan. This is the toxic masculinity and toxic femininity video. Also, shout out to Edward. I forgot to mention it in the Zane video, but he did request the Zane video. So shout out to you, Edward. If you want a shout out, if you have a video that you really want me to cover, a topic, anything, a TV show, movie, please fill out the Google form below. That is how I'm going to be doing like any like request videos moving forward. I do have my own things that I do want to, you know, create and when it comes to like video content for you guys. But if you have anything like specific and you want to try to get in there for like the month, that way those who fill out the form, they have priority. They also get a shout out. That way you guys can add to the channel too.
Good girl.
It's nice.
No. It's good training.
First, define toxic masculinity. The way I define it is like the pressure to perform masculine ideals in a way that is harmful to the people, that is harmful to people who identify as male. Promiscuity in general, which we know what promiscuity is. That's like indulging in risky sexual behaviors, even just the abnormality of sexual behaviors and sexual nature. And in terms of Degrassi, guys, there's a lot of that on the show. And it also ties into the other aspect of promiscuity, and that is with cheating, which I covered in my cheating video. But I feel like a lot of the characters who have experienced toxic masculinity in this aspect of promiscuity would be like Craig, Dallas, Drew, Jay, Casey. Like I try to write down as many characters as I can, but other characters do come up. And so like, let's start off with Craig. Let's analyze Craig a little bit. Craig, he literally was hooking up with Manny because Ashley wouldn't hook up with him. Now that's not in nature of him like hooking up with many girls, but there is that abnormal risky behavior because you're cheating outside of your relationship. First of all, you're romantically involved with someone else, but because you're not getting that physical intimacy from one partner, you're seeking it in somebody else. And so with that, that's an aspect of Craig experiencing and establishing toxic masculinity in that sense. We move on to Dallas. Now moving on to, what was it? I think it was like seasons 13, 14, when Dallas actually, this was after Cam had passed away. This was around the time he got kicked off the team. So before anyone found out, before Drew found out he got kicked off of the hockey team, Dallas started to engage in some promiscuous behavior. He didn't go all the way with the girls, as we find out, because Drew thought that Dallas's behavior was causing more problems than anything. And then he had one of the girls that Dallas did hook up with, per se, because in terms of hookup for teenagers, it's making out. It's not actually like, you know, it's not doing that. And so the girl was like, oh, I'm pregnant. And he said, well, what we did can't get you pregnant. So it wasn't this, but there are other aspects of, you know, risky sexual behaviors and intimacy that puts Dallas in this category. He was literally bringing home girls every night. I mean, also the fact that he had a child at a young age too. And having urges and, you know, having a sexual nature isn't bad, especially for teenagers, because that's, their bodies are developing in puberty. It happens, but at a younger age, it's not ideal, you know, but it does happen. And for Dallas to have a kid at such a young age and then to be engaging in this behavior while also at the same time, even before this, he was always constantly trying to gain a woman's attention. He tried to do that with Katie. He kissed Claire after Claire just told him that she was assaulted by her boss. Like, sir, I'm gonna need you to read The Room. Like, I laugh because it's so frustrating, and it gets to the point where all you can do is laugh, because it's just like it's just mind-boggling that having 2 + 2 and you try to equal it to like 5, because now you're engaging in the behavior that they just said that they just was assault. Anyway, who else is on the list? Drew's promiscuity all started with Bianca, from what we know, because he came into Degrassi later with Adam, and their family came on the show later, and he said that he's always dated different girls, but he's never had a girlfriend per se. So we don't know what he has done prior to Degrassi when it comes to his intimacy levels, but from Degrassi we know that it's his first time. Like Bianca taking him to the boiler room, that was his first physical intimacy that required things below the belt. That was his first time doing that. And at the same time, after that, he ends up, like I said, this is a modeled part because I covered it in Katie's video and I covered it in Drew's video too, a little bit, because Drew's video was more towards the fact why Drew needs to stop sleeping with every single person that Adam liked. But the fact that Drew was drunk and Katie was sober when they, assaults. Like, no one under the influence can give consent. Let's go. Let's start there. And so with him having his first time with Katie and also being under the influence, that also didn't help. And then also the fact that throughout his entire 2 relationships, he was always cheating on his relationships. We all know that. We cover that so much. We know this about Drew. With Allie, he did it. With Allie, he was with Bianca, and then with Katie, he was still infatuated, in love with, whatever you want to call it, with Bianca. And then moving on to other characters with promiscuity, I feel like one of the biggest characters with like the hugest promiscuity, even if it's not like deliberately on screen, is Jay. And we know this about Jay because literally when Alex goes on stage, this is after Rick passes away. This is after the shooting. When Emma is doing the play and she's all like numb and she starts hooking up with Jay. Remember that traumatic experience? Yeah, this is around that time. This is that time when Alex goes up on stage and she punches Amy for sleeping with Jay, because that's the episode where Emma has I believe it's the STI or STD, I forget which one, but it was gonorrhea. And it's not shown Jay's promiscuity, but the fact that Jay, literally, we always seen Jay with Alex, and then he has this situation with Emma, and then we're finding out information at the end, after that he gave Emma gonorrhea. Jay was one of the most promiscuous male characters on Degrassi. Like, hands down. Like, we don't see any other, we see one girlfriend for a short period of time. She's like in 1 or 2 episodes, but then she's not there anymore. That's the one that told Alex about the job down at the bar that she worked at. But even off screen, Jay's the most promiscuous character that we know in the Degrassi franchise, not from like Degrassi Junior High, Degrassi High, but I would say like Degrassi, The Next Generation and onward. He's literally like the most promiscuous one. Okay. Another character I would say I would put on the list is Miles. We don't know if Miles and Maya, hooked up, but Miles does have some promiscuity, especially with Maya. Zoe, and then almost with Zoe again, which he told Chewie to lie about on the stand, and then going to Tristan. Okay, and then there's Tristan. After the breakup with Miles, Tristan started to have a promiscuity phase. He was sleeping with dudes left and right, which is why he sent out that email, that anonymous email to everybody that he's hooked up with, which led to VJ calling him out on it because Tristan was the only person that VJ had been with. Yep. So that's just one aspect of toxic masculinity. It's just that belief that every guy needs to be constantly hooking up with different girls, cycling through women all the time. Casey's done it, even though him and Claire didn't have any physical intimacy, but he did cycle through girls. He did cheat on Claire. He cheated on Claire with Jenna, and he cheated on Jenna with Marisol. So I'm counting that. Casey too. Dave also did it. Dave didn't get it from Allie, so he slept with somebody over the summer. When they're not getting their needs met, they sought it. They seek it elsewhere, and that's how we ended up with a lot of the male characters doing a lot of cheating and a lot of promiscuity that's tied to it. Moving on to another aspect of toxic masculinity, I feel like is more concrete on Degrassi, and that's violence. And violence in the sense of you have to puff out your chest. If a man steps to you, you have to dominate. You have to be domineering. You have to put people in their place. So that toxic masculinity tied in with that of just experiencing, just being the person to having that power and, you know, being a violent person. That is an aspect of toxic masculinity, and a lot of characters are on this list. I can't say almost all, but there are a lot of male characters who experience this aspect of toxic masculinity. Starting off with Owen. Owen is a very aggressive dude. Very aggressive, always fighting, always starting shit every 10 seconds. Jay is definitely one of them. Like I said, Jay is Satan of Degrassi. Okay, we all know that. Jay is that instigator. He always starts things. He's very aggressive. So tying that violence in with also the emotional instability and the wavelength of all that, how that goes, leading to their violent nature. That's Jay to a T. Like, they took... We'll get to Rick in a second. But they bullied Rick to the point where he brought a pew-pew up to the school. You're tossing him in the garbage can. You're dumping paint and feathers on him. You're constantly in his face. Everyone's always shoving him. Jay and Sean, they nearly got into a fight the first time around when Raditch talked to Sean about the busted vending machine. They nearly got into a fight. And then they nearly got into a fight again when Sean found out about Emma and Jay hooking up. Like, Jay is the devil. What else to tell you? But then also with those examples, we see that violence in Sean. The dude's cool and all sometimes, but he does display a lot of aggression and violence. He even says to Emma back in season 1 that he struggles with anger issues. Anger issues, also violent tendencies, sir. Like, you like to throw a punch, okay? The only reason why he didn't punch Jay in the face is because he hit the pole. But he deafened a kid in one ear. Very violent kid. Very aggressive kid. Another character that we all absolutely hate, and it's just the way that they made him, is Derek. Derek is he's like a caricature of toxic masculinity. Derek as a character, like literally You're so mad that a girl joined the football team, that you guys bully her, harass her, and physically harm her just for being on the football team. Derek's the one that kicked her in the stomach. By her, I miss Jane, if you forgot who her name is. Derek's the one that kicked Jane in the stomach. Derek is a very violent character, but he was introduced in such a sweet way when he was just talking to Liberty about him being adopted, while Liberty was trying to navigate giving her baby up for adoption and what the next steps are for her in terms of, I feel like, just clarity and reflection because of giving her child up for adoption. But after that, Derek went downhill. Very violent, very aggressive dude. He was a bully. He got so mad at Danny because Rachel was into Danny and not him, that he deliberately made Danny look like he was a thief. He didn't punch Danny, but that's very violent behavior, especially being a black man in this world. That's not just in Canada, in the US. That is very violent behavior. You cannot be doing that. And that's Derek to a T. Another character that comes up. And this character is more nuanced than anything, but he does display aspects of toxic masculinity, and that is Spinner. And I get, because at the time Spinner was dealing with his testicular cancer, and he had a lot of anger and resentment and frustrations around that. But that doesn't mean you go on and start fighting people. That was very violent for no reason whatsoever. I get that you're angry, but that's why we have therapy. But you're over here fighting people to prove your masculinity and prove the fact that you're still a man with having only one. Because that's where all that came from. He probably didn't feel like a man anymore with having only one, and also with losing his dad to cancer as well, because we don't even get that backstory till much later on, that his dad passed away from cancer. But still, that doesn't mean you go ahead and start getting into fight clubs and start fighting people. That leads to Drew. Drew's the same way. When Drew didn't want to deal with the fact that he had PTSD, and he started to engage in fight club behavior. Very violent. Like, what for? Like, there's a difference between learning how to protect and defend yourself. Like Katie was teaching him like karate moves, Krav Maga, whatever she was doing. There's a difference between learning how to defend yourself in that way, in a disciplined way, and doing it in a violent way because you're mad. Again, Owen was part of there too. You see what I mean? Like, it always comes back to a lot of these like these main characters. Who's another character? Damien. If you don't know who Damien is, Damien was introduced season 13, 14. He wasn't a main character, but he was Zig's friend at the beginning. And then when we move into season 14, going into next class, he starts to engage in gang-like behavior. And while Zig and Tiny, they were also doing, gang affiliated behavior, Damien was always the aggressor within the situation. Like, he was literally like bumping Zig in the hallway, being like, watch out for your boy. Because remember, I think Tiny had gotten stabbed, and Damien was all up in Zig's face about that. A very aggressive kid, very violent kid. Very violent kid. I covered Sean. Johnny is a violent kid. He doesn't seem like it outwardly, because a lot of the times we just saw him hanging out with Bruce the Moose. But even between them two, when they got into that fight at the pool hall, when Johnny was going to go off to college and Bruce wasn't, they both are violent in nature. It's still there. Also, because Johnny, a lot of the times, the people you hang around are people that resemble you. Just saying it. And so a lot of the times the people that you connect with, the people in your inner circle, they have a lot of similar aspects like you do. Y'all may have like different beliefs, but at its core, you guys are very similar in nature. And for Johnny to be friends with the same dude who stabbed JT says a lot to me. If you can be friends with the guy who could do that to somebody, I know for sure that you're also capable they're also capable of some level of violence. Maybe not to the extent of stabbing someone like he did, but you are in that ballpark, that realm. Also, it becomes part of your background too, and where you grew up, and wherever Johnny grew up, because we don't even get Johnny's backstory. Wherever he grew up, wherever Bruce the Moose came from, like whatever part of Canada, wherever they are. It seems very much like Jay's background. Like you're in an area where people exhibit certain behaviors to survive. They steal, they fight consistently, and it's because of the environment and a lot of the emotions and struggles with living in that situation. Also like Sean too, where it's all in that space. Everything's bubbling up. Like there's always a lot going on, a lot of negativity, a lot of negative energy, a lot of struggle, a lot of pain, a lot of resentment for circumstances and life experiences that can cultivate a lot of violent people. And not to say the people specifically are bad people, but being in that environment does not help. And so kids like Johnny, they do exhibit violent behaviors. And the friends around you also exhibit violent behaviors because that's your community. That's what you're surrounded by. So Johnny goes on this list for me. There are other characters too, like even Miles and Zig, because Zig, like I said, also was doing gang affiliated stuff. And the way Zig perpetuated violence, he never actually physically hurt somebody, but he did antagonize a lot of characters. And so when those characters snapped, who also did violent nature, who also have like violent natures, or at least like violent tendencies, he was never shocked that came out. He knows because of what he has been around. So like with Miles putting the fake pew pew in his face, the fact that Cam headbutted him, Zig knows what he was doing. Zig was antagonizing, and he was getting under these guys' skins. And I do not condone Miles doing any of that behavior. I don't. But like I said in Maya's video, she didn't want to see the fact that Zig was a completely different person than how she met Zig at the beginning. And the Zig that came about later is a character who was very conniving, very antagonistic. And he would put on that puppy dog, I'm still in love with you air around Maya. But when she wasn't around, he was always in Miles's face. He was always saying some real slick shit. Like if you go back and watch, I rewatch it all the time. Like I've been rewatching Degrassi with doing my content, doing my videos, but also just because like it's one of my comfort shows, and half the time I don't have time or energy to start a new show because then I gotta sit down and pay attention. Like you hear it in the way Zig talks to Miles, how he talks about Miles. It's there.
Now when the party's clearly out here.
Look, Maya's worried, Zig. I know you care.
Actually, I don't.
Well, I do. I'm not letting you ruin this for her. So, come on.
Don't touch me, rich boy.
Fine. Suit yourself.
Yeah, that's right. Walk away. Go back to my sloppy seconds.
Whew.
The same way he talked about Cam. Now moving on into a little bit more of the emotional instability side. Also, instability, but also some other aggressive characters I forgot to mention. Riley. Riley is a very violent character. A lot of aggression, a lot of frustration, because he did not want to accept the fact that he was gay, but he was a very violent character. He headbutted Sam when Sam literally was just talking to him about being gay. Like, he busted his nose for no reason whatsoever. Riley was a very violent character. He never exhibited that violence towards Zane, but Riley was a very violent character. Very violent. Like, there's nothing else to say about it. Like, he even acted out his aggression towards Fiona when he yelled at her in the hallway. He didn't put his hands on her, but that is still a very violent nature. There's a lot of anger, a lot of shit bubbling up to the surface.
Too bad you can't cure, bitch!
Very violent character. Dallas. Yes, we did have that one fight scene at Claire's birthday party with Eli, Jake, Dallas, and some other hockey extras that they, put in there. Dave too for a minute there, but that's because the dude was like bumping into Allie and shit, and Dave had to handle that situation. But Dallas was a very violent character, very aggressive, very antagonistic too. Just like Zig, where he came into the school with this huge ego and this belief that he's gonna be getting these girls, and as soon as a girl doesn't like him, he trashes her freaking garden. For what? Because she doesn't like you? Violent. That is literally red flag number one. Just because you don't like a certain person, that doesn't mean that person should go ahead and trash your stuff. They shouldn't get to that level. And that's what Dallas did. And then with the Claire situation, I said that back in the promiscuity part. Claire told him that she was assaulted by her boss, and he proceeds to assault her. Really? You don't listen. You're hard-headed. You're so frustrated. And then to show up at her birthday party to antagonize everyone for no reason whatsoever. And then when you get your ass beat, you're like, see you all at school.
See everyone at school. Oh, going down, Eli.
And then you continue to antagonize everyone around you when you get back to school by trying to take down Eli's play. Like, he was a very aggressive character for no reason whatsoever, just because some girl didn't like him. Miles, I didn't cover Miles in the other part, but I did put Zig and Jay also for aggression. But Miles was a very aggressive character. Do I condone Zig getting in Miles's face? Absolutely, I do not. But Miles also took it too far. Okay. And then also with the way that he was very aggressive towards and very cruel towards Tristan for no reason whatsoever. Saying that, oh, no one could ever love you. I don't know why you keep coming back for more. Every time I treat you like dirt, you keep coming back.
You went behind my back when I thought you were the one person who understood.
Well, I do understand.
No, you're pathetic, you know that? Tristan, I treat you like absolute garbage and you keep crawling back for more. Why? Are you really that desperate for somebody to love you?
Like, Miles is a very aggressive character. Very. He is a short fuse. And that aspect is very much like his father. His father was abusive, and Miles is not abusive physically, but his language, that's very concerning. Like, just because you don't throw mugs or push people up against the wall like your dad did, you are still very aggressive with your words. And when Maya was completely traumatized. You know, she was completely traumatized from Cam. So when Miles started going on the deep end, she started to get worried about him. Sorry, y'all. My data was full. How to handle that situation. And then moving on to another aspect of emotional instability, I would say, is hiding their true emotions and trying to be a man. Riley, trying to be heterosexual. That did not work, bro. Which led to his aggression and his violence. See, you see how that all ties in? Yeah. Dallas as well, especially with getting kicked off the team, led to his promiscuity behavior. You see that. But also his behavior towards Cam. Cam wasn't allowed to miss practice. Cam wasn't allowed to cry. He wasn't allowed to struggle because Dallas was beating into him. You are the number one player. Everyone's looking at you. You have to be your best. And Cam crumbled. I'm just saying. Who other characters hid their true emotions into being a man? Spinner, like I said, was dealing with the fact of having testicular cancer. I can't think of any other character that exhibited like hiding their true emotions. But also with promiscuity, but also perviness in nature, Peter. Okay. Peter is another huge example of toxic masculinity because as soon as a girl doesn't like him, doesn't want his attention, he posts her video online. He sends a creepy pervy dude to another girl's main page.
Did you really buy that crap I told you about him? I met Adam's in a chat room. He's just some bored, lonely loser with money.
But I thought he said...
Lies. A lot of lies. He played you, Darcy. Just like you played me.
He literally sent old dude Adams to Darcy's page. At first he said like, oh, that's my friend. And then it was like, I don't know him. Joke's on you. Sir. What in the literal fuck is wrong with you? Like, Peter got on my nerves so bad. But we just see a lot of toxic masculinity in a lot of characters. But I also want to dive into characters who were victims of the toxic masculinity from other characters on the show. And I would say Toby, Wesley, Connor. I feel like those are the main ones that were victims of it because with Dave wanting to be popular, Dave experienced, Dave actually caused violence onto Wesley, tasing him because he wanted to be seen as cool by these nameless dudes that we see for 2 seconds and then they dip. Wesley was a victim because Wesley has never changed. Wesley never dabbled in promiscuity. He was never violent with anybody. He was never aggressive towards anybody, even though Dave was doing that behavior. And even when Connor did look at Hannah's boobs, he didn't lash out. He didn't fight anybody. And then when that other kid came in and was trying to like flirt with Hannah, he didn't even like try to fight the dude. Like he wasn't trying to do any of that. If anything, he was just jealous and he felt like as if the guy was better than him. That's why he was trying to get his license and tried to prove that he was cool enough to have Hannah on his arm. And Hannah was like, I don't even want him anyway. He's like, oh. But Wesley never exhibited any toxic masculinity in any sense. Even when Dave was like, we need to get girlfriends, he's like, great. How do we do that? Like, he wasn't going up to random girls and being like, hey, you want to go make out somewhere? He wasn't assaulting anybody. He had a crush on Anya, but he never did anything to act on that inappropriately towards Anya. Not at all. He just thought he was going to take some Viagra. But he never acted on it. And like, literally. And then literally when he clocked that Anya had a crush on Dr. Chris, he dipped. Like, he didn't infiltrate and try to be all like, no, she needs to be with me. He didn't get aggressive. He didn't get angry. He didn't try to puff out his chest towards Dr. Chris or anyone for that matter. Like, he didn't even do that towards Connor. Wesley was a victim. Toby was also a victim. The fact that JT treated him in such a negative way when JT was trying to be popular and cool. And then also after the fact when Toby became friends with Rick. And I believe I said it in my Toby video, but Toby became friends with Rick because he had no other friends. He had no other friends. But also, I don't think he knew to the extent of Rick's nature, because the only ones that really knew about Terry being in a coma is like the main crew, and Toby wasn't part of that crew. I could see JT knowing because JT was friends with Paige. He started to hang out with them. I could see him finding out that information later. But JT did say he was like, oh, it was like you knew what he was like, but I don't think Toby knew to that extent because he didn't know what happened in that friend group. Like, no one else talks about Terry being in a coma outside of that friend group. No one else does. Like, we don't hear Emma talk about it. We don't hear Manny talk about it. We don't even hear Craig talk about it when Craig comes in later. Like, we don't hear anyone talk about it besides like the main ones who are in the group, which is Paige, Hazel, Jimmy, Spinner. Ashley was barely there, but you know what I mean? Like, outside of that core group, no one talked about Terry being in a coma or Terry being in an abusive relationship. No one knew to an extent of what Rick's true nature was like. And I feel like Toby was definitely a victim of that because he needed a friend. JT was moving differently. And then when everything went down with the pew-pewing at school, Toby lost that friend too. Like Toby's a victim. Okay. Also, when he was at the water fountain getting water, when Jay and Spanner came up to him and they like hit him upside the head and it caused his lip to bleed because he bumped it against the water fountain piece. Like, you see what I mean? Jay, Spinner, violent natures. And you put it on to Toby for what? Your issue is with Rick, not Toby. Aggression. See, it all like perfectly just like encapsulates toxic masculinity in these characters, and it's very frustrating when you like sit and realize like how many characters on Degrassi exhibited such toxic masculinity and such aggressive, violent behaviors that when you do find characters who don't exhibit that, it's so hard to find them. Like with Connor, I did add Connor as a victim. Because with Connor's diagnosis, with Connor being on the spectrum, having autism, he did not understand. He did do some creepy stuff. He was being creepy about it. But he didn't fully understand. Like when Hannah caught him staring at her boobs, she was like, I'm gonna do this over here. And he's like, oh, well, you do it all the time, Wesley. Wesley's like, fuck. Like, it's a lot of the things for Connor he was learning, but then he was also preyed upon by that creepy old lady, a Love Queen 16, okay? He did get aggressive and push Allie. I will count that too. But in terms of like toxic masculinity as a whole and distributing a lot of those behaviors, Connor wavers on the other side of things. He's not like Jay. Like, you know, there's a whole different level to it. There's also other aspects of toxic masculinity that I'm now thinking about even more in detail, of expecting girls to behave a certain way. Blue. Hate him. Blue Chessex, whatever his name was. I hate him. He tried to mold Holly J into a person that she was not, and he did not respect her identity. He said, goodbye, Holly. Her name is Holly J, ho. Okay, don't piss me off. He was trying to morph her into something that she is not. He tried to make her be like, oh, you have to talk to people. You have to give the people what they want. That's not who Holly J is. Like, I do understand she has to be open to other people's ideas, you know, being the school president. I do agree with that. But the way he was doing it in a slimy way. He was trying to change her. And I do not approve of that whatsoever. Sav does the same thing. Sav does expect girls to behave in a certain way and does have certain views, like with Ali being in the tent with Johnny, but yet he's in the tent with Anya with his shirt off. Also, let's also count all the times a lot of these male characters call the female characters sluts and whores.
Hey, Jimmy.
Don't talk to me, you slut.
Yeah, it happened a lot. Eli did it to Claire. Like, it's so many aspects of it. But I do want to hop into toxic femininity.
Yes. Good, because I don't want to be friends with the school slut.
This is going back to the last thing I just said about toxic masculinity, and is the promiscuity, but specifically calling each other sluts and whores. This happened with Manny, Emma, Zoe, Esme. Who else said it, or at least exhibit promiscuity in nature? Jane. Yep. And not to call them sluts and whores, because I'm not doing that. I don't slut shame nobody. But they either they said or they done promiscuous things. Manny sleeping with another girl's boyfriend. Girl. Manny calling her the school slut, but also hooking up with Jay. You see that? You see how that progression happened? Exactly. Zoe, and this is before her grape, when Frankie was talking to her about, this was right before then before everybody started to speculate what was going on, when Frankie said, like, well, you did say you wanted to make out with tons of guys at the party.
Guys at parties? Isn't that what you did with Drew? That is sort of what happened with Drew, and you were walking around that party saying you wanted to make out with guys. So what?
And Frankie's not deliberately calling her a slut or a whore, but she is trying to excuse other people calling Zoe that, or at least saying Zoe wanted something to happen. So Frankie in the mix too, yeah. The only person who was trying to defend Zoe was Keisha. We saw Keisha for 2 seconds. And that's the reason why Keisha was late for that little thing that Zoe was doing, because they were going to perform. Keisha said, I got held up because I was trying to defend you. Keisha's the only one that was trying to defend her. No one else was trying to defend Zoe immediately when the rumors came out. No one else, just Keisha. That's why you gotta have a black woman in your corner, okay? Because immediately Keisha said, I was trying to defend your ass, okay? Because these rumors they're swirling around. And then with Esme, the guys called her Easy Esme. You see that? And then other girls were like, oh, she does things that other girls don't do. They didn't deliberately say it, but you could also tell by their body language that they're very uncomfortable with Esme's behavior.
Those are just jokes.
About me.
You're the one who's always doing crazy stuff.
What is your issue?
Sometimes you do things other girls wouldn't do.
Calling you a slut.
Maya was uncomfortable with her behavior. She was like, She was like, okay. Grace was uncomfortable. There were a lot of female characters that were uncomfortable with Esme's behavior. And it got to the point where even Zig was uncomfortable with Esme's behavior. And then she goes on to assault Chewie in the hallway. And then later takes off all of her clothes in front of Saad for the art project, because she believed that Zig and Maya were getting closer and she needed to make Zig jealous, because Tiny said that Zig couldn't handle anyone around Maya. Like, Zig was very jealous character. And so she took that as, oh, if I just take off all my clothes for this project, Zig would be jealous and would be all up my ass all over again. And that's not how it worked. Jenna, you coming on the show talking about you're a boyfriend stealer, then you steal somebody else's boyfriend. And then you say it to Holly J, saying that getting rid of insignificant girlfriends is kind of my thing. Okay, girl. But a lot of the times on the show, a lot of these female characters, just like the male characters, they called each other sluts and whores. They called each other out on it. And they did it without blinking. Like literally when Manny said that she didn't want to be friends with a stuck-up prude princess, Emma immediately called her a slut. Without even stopping. She didn't hesitate. She just came out with it. And it's like, damn, okay. That's rude. Moving on to another aspect of toxic femininity. This one is a little bit more different. And it's the relationship to mothers or interactions with mothers on the show. You're probably like a little confused. I'm going to get into it. Claire, Darcy, Mrs. Edwards, Jenna. Think about that for a second. Okay, I'm gonna dive into it. So, with Darcy's experience with being assaulted at the party, we didn't get any information from Mrs. Edwards. We didn't see anything like that. If anything, we just saw Darcy going through the emotional and mental turmoil with finding out of being assaulted and having no memory of it whatsoever, and the damage that she caused along the way. But we never saw Mrs. Edwards like talking to her. Like, and I get it because at the time they wanted to show a different aspect of assault and rape. But I feel like we needed that because with the way that Mrs. Edwards raises her daughters, she raises them in a very Christian household. I would have been very interested to see how Mrs. Edwards would have handled Darcy's experience, because the fact that Mrs. Edwards put Darcy into the rebellious teen boot camp thing at the school, she clearly just thought, it seems like she thought that Darcy was just acting out and that she was being a rebellious teenage girl, that she was causing more problems. But yet she didn't sit down and talk with her daughter about why this was happening. I could definitely see Mrs. Edwards not even having that conversation, because later on, when it comes to Mrs. Edwards and Claire, there is no conversation. Like, no genuine conversation. Mrs. Edwards is a mom that pisses me off just as much as Audra. Every single time I rewatch Degrassi, Mrs. Edwards pisses me off like no one else's business. This woman, I get having marital issues and you don't want to stress your daughter out, but if your daughter is coming to you with concerns, talk to her instead of trying to push it under a rug because of your Christian household, your Christian ideals and whatever, and always saying like, oh, we're not fighting, we're disagreeing. That's not helpful to your child. It's just adding to a layer of, you have to appease a man. You can't honestly say what's going on, but you also can't lash out either. Because when Randall was talking to Claire's mom, in that moment, both when she's at the computer, this is in Better Off Alone Part 1, when she was talking to Eli online right before she ends up going to the event with her mom. Randall is a very aggressive man. He's a very rude man. Also, we know that he was having an affair, obviously, continuously at that too. Because Claire found out later in the paperwork that he had repeated infidelity issues, and her mom just allowed it to happen. And in that conversation, though, Randall was very much like, "You made these plans, and her mom was just like, That's not helpful. That's not helpful to yourself. That's not helpful to your daughter, because it literally shows that a man is allowed to act out and be aggressive towards you, and you can't do nothing about it. You can't just put him in his place, or you can't even have like a conversation. You have to be subservient. You have to let a man do what a man does, and you have to excuse his behavior, because later in the car when Claire is talking about it, like, why doesn't dad like come to events, like why is dad always working late or whatever, and her mom was just like, oh, you know, he's just busy. Stop excusing these men's behavior.
Told you he had to work.
He's been working a lot lately.
What are you getting at, Claire?
If something was wrong, you'd tell me, right?
You're such a worrywart. What do you want me to tell you?
The truth?
Nothing's wrong.
You're sure?
Positive. Now go.
She knows that her husband was having an affair continuously and still let it happen. That's the aspect of toxic femininity, and the belief that you have to be subservient. You have to let men be men. You have to be docile. You can't question men. You can't speak up for yourself. That's not helpful for your daughter, who's going to grow up believing that she can't fight her own battles, that she has to let a man control her, that a man's say so is the final word. That's not helpful. That's very, very harmful. That's very, very harmful. And Mrs. Edwards pissed me off with that. And then moving on, when Mrs. Edwards and Randall divorced, because we never know Mrs. Randall's first name. That's what I'm saying. Maybe Mrs. Edwards, because we don't know her first name, but we know that it's Randall. That her dad's name is Randall, because Mrs. Edwards does say Randall. I'm just saying. Okay, anyway. When Mrs. Edwards starts dating and she comes home late one night, and Claire immediately thought someone was breaking into the house, rightfully so, because you're home alone. It was like, what, 3 o'clock in the morning? Of course, Claire has a right to like freak out and think that someone's about to break into the house, so she grabbed her phone and everything. But as soon as she opens up the door, the first thing her mom says is, what are you doing up? Why are you sneaking into the house at 3 in the morning? Because your daughter is here, probably thinking that someone is breaking into the house. You don't think that through? Your child is in a very vulnerable position because there's no one else in the fucking house. But you're mad at her for being up. Excuse you? And then when Claire talks about like, oh, like, you know, like, why are you coming home so late? And she's like, oh, it's just out with a friend having drinks. And then Claire's like, oh my God, is that a date? She's like, it's none of your business. That's not helpful either. Talking about it helps your daughter know that, yes, you will be going through relationship issues, and you are allowed to move on from those situations, and it's fine and it's normal. You can talk about it. It doesn't have to be like some shameful secret. But that's what Mrs. Edwards makes it seem like, that her dating is shameful. Like, you can't talk, like, I don't want to talk to you. You can't know about this. You can't know about this. Why the fuck not? It's not like you're bringing home random dudes every night. Like, you're not doing that. You just going out to dinner with the guy and having drinks. You can share that with your daughter. You don't have to do like the in and outs, like the little details of like everything. You just be like, oh yeah, I had a date with the guy. Oh, okay. But her mom is like so like still stuck on these stupid ideals and this stupid shameful mindset that she has to like put up a wall between her and her daughter. That's not helpful. That's hurting Claire more than anything, and it's hurting herself as a woman to keep that wall in between her and her daughter and not having those very serious conversations. And then later, when Jake's dad, this is on Jake's birthday, so this is after they get married. Yeah, it was after they got married. Claire and Jake broke up, and Jake invited Jenna over. You already know how I feel about Jenna. But in that situation, when they're at the dinner table, when Claire had a right to be upset, like, I'm not saying like everything that she said was, you know, like needed at the table, but for her to be frustrated was very much right. Her mom, well, first, Jake's dad, whatever his name was, Glenn. When Jenna told them about giving up a baby for adoption, Mrs. Edwards didn't even speak first. Glenn did. And said like, oh, that's very condemnable. Like, like you made a really hard decision. And then Mrs. Edwards is like, yeah, that's very true. You did make a hard decision. And I do think you're brave for that. And Claire was right to stand out because she was like, if I had done that, you would have sent me to Siberia or some shit. Like she would have been furious. In that kind of situation, Mrs. Edwards doesn't help her daughter out whatsoever because now Glenn is over here talking to Claire as if that's her daddy. So when Claire says, you're not my father, rightfully so, because who the fuck do you think you are? The person who should be parenting me is my parent, and she's sitting right there not saying nothing. She's still letting a man lead. She's not being a mother. She doesn't know how to be one. She doesn't know how to be a mother. She just knows how to be subservient to a man. Because Glenn had no business talking to Claire. Okay, first of all. I'm not saying like he can't like talk to, like discipline Claire whatsoever. I'm not saying that. But that's not your child. And for you to be the first person to be like, Claire, calm down. Excuse you? Her parent is right there. And Mrs. Edwards doesn't defend herself. She doesn't say, ooh, hold on. I got my daughter. Let me talk to her. Calm yourself down too. She doesn't do that. She lets Glenn go do what he wants to do. And then she's like, well, we are at dinner and we need to be respectful. Mrs. Edwards pisses me off with that. Because Claire had a right to be upset. Also, it's Jenna. Jenna has a history of doing this. Jenna and Zoe are literally the same person. They have a history of literally targeting another character for seasons on end for no reason. Jenna, there's plenty of other guys you can hang out with at Degrassi. Why does it have to be Jake? Why do you have a pattern, Jenna? Are you in love with Claire? Do you want to be with her? Who's next, Eli? Like, Jenna pissed me off so much with that kind of shit all the time. And for no one to clock that always pissed me off. And it still pisses me off to this day. So for Claire to be upset, she had a right to be upset about that. Because why the fuck is this bitch here in my house? She act like I forgot everything. Like I said, Jenna never actually apologized to Claire about what she did with Casey. She never apologized. Casey barely apologized, but Jenna never apologized. Later on in the cold night, she's like, "You're not still mad at me, are you?" That's not an apology. She never sat down and talked to Claire about what she did. She never freaking apologized. And for her to sit at Claire's dinner table in Claire's house would piss me off too. That would piss me off as Claire. I would be so mad. And then for your mom to just sit there and let this shit happen when Glenn shouldn't even be talking to you and raising his voice at you in the first place isn't helpful at all. Mrs. Edwards is an issue. She's a problem. Moving on to another parent that gets on my last nerves. Well, another mother that gets on my last nerves. Audra. Because literally when Audra comes in, not when she's firstly introduced, but when Audra comes to Degrassi and she's Allie and Drew together, she immediately blames Allie for why his son is failing. Your son is dumb. That is not Allie's fault. Drew is just not an academic kid. He's just not. He's not. And not to say like he's not intelligent, he's not bright. You could be intelligent in different ways. But academically, that's not true. And Audra had a hard time with accepting the fact that her son was not intelligent academically. But she put that on Allie as if it was Allie's problem. No, your child's just a dumbass in school. That's fine, it happens. Not everybody is, academically gifted or whatever, okay? Shoot. Half the time I'm not. Like, I was never like a gifted student. But she immediately tied Drew's failing grade to a girl. Why? Why can't it just be the fact that your son just doesn't like school and isn't good at school? Why? Why are you targeting a teenage girl like that? toxic femininity. Why misogynistic? Why does a girl have to equate to your son being bad in school? And then with the Bianca situation, she barely even, she let that thing go with Bianca. I don't know why. I said it in Bianca's video. I said it in the Drew video too. But Bianca was up Audra's ass anyway, so she probably was like, oh, that's fine. I can mold you into somebody that my son can be with forever. But then as soon as they get engaged, she's like, not like that. Audra has issues. She wants to pick and choose when she wants to target a teenage girl. And then she wants to take Bianca under her wing. I don't like it. I don't like that behavior whatsoever. Next mother on the list is Spike and Emma. And this has nothing to do with how, with Emma's confidence or arrogance, whatever we want to call it. Emma had no issue speaking up for herself. And that's not a toxic femininity thing. That's just, she was able to speak up for herself. My issue was, and still is and always will be, is how Emma talks to people. How she talks to people. She antagonizes. She has no respect for anyone around her. Her opinion is the only opinion that matters. And that's the problem. She literally, at 12 years old, she had the audacity to raise her voice at another adult. Yes, Tracker can be annoying, but you need to get your child in line because your child is being disrespectful to adults for no freaking reason.
Don't look at her. It's my piece and I'm right. Students shouldn't be force-fed advertising when we're at school. If you don't get it, you're the idiot.
Emma.
Look, it's not that serious.
What? Expressing my opinion isn't important?
Well, that's all my brother's trying to do.
I could tell, and he's wrong.
She's raising her voice and saying like, well, your opinion is wrong. My opinion is right. Your child has an entitlement issue. Spike never got her in check on that. She taught her to speak up for herself, and that is good. But the thing is, when you lack that control, that entitlement comes out, and that's the fucking problem. Spike never reeled her in on that. Emma has no apathy, no respect for anyone around her. That's why she called Manny a slut in 2 seconds. That's why she's yelling at adults. She yells at Spike half the damn time. In the beginning of the show, she's yelling at her, being like, what are you doing in my room? I'm like, excuse you, watch your tone. She doesn't check her on that. And when Emma's like, Mom, I'm not having sex, she's just like, I'm gonna have fun this weekend, right? No, that's the time when you need to check your daughter. Get that attitude under control, because then that attitude becomes everybody else's problem. And it became everyone else's problem because you couldn't get your child in check. That's when it becomes a problem. That's when it becomes toxic. You can't get your daughter in check. There is no issue with speaking up for yourself, commanding respect, but also giving respect. There's a way to it. There's a way to communicate and just be a normal human, being a human being, being a person who was able to communicate and grow and build connections. Emma had an issue with that because Emma didn't respect anybody, and Spike never got her on that. The time when they're in the mall, when the guy was harassing them, that's a moment that I do agree where, you teach your daughter to stand up for herself because that man is harassing you. But in other situations, when people are just talking to you and people have other opinions, that doesn't mean you yell at them. That doesn't mean you're disrespectful and you negate their viewpoints because you think you're always right. And Spike had an issue with that. That's where I have an issue with Spike. Spike never got Emma in check on that. Now, moving on to another aspect of toxic femininity. This is going to season 13, 14, so we're going to fast forward. And this is with fashion. And not to say, like, girls have to wear, like, certain colors or certain frilly things. They have to like look, it has to be like a certain type of skirt or whatever. I'm not talking about that. The thing I'm talking about is the protest that Imogen had. Remember, Imogen showed up to school without a bra on. Also, that teacher is misogynistic. That French teacher, hate her. I don't like her. gross. But when Imogen had that protest, and she really just trying to even the playing field when it comes to like what girls wear and what guys wear, you know, like equality. Like that's what she was trying to do. That's what she was trying to do. But the girls took it too far. Frankie, because that was when Frankie was introduced. Keisha, and they all said like, oh, we dress this way because we want to get guys' attention. Imogen was like, I'm sorry, what?
What do we want? Bra tops. I'm not sure they're gonna go for that. G-strings. You wear those? Why G-central? Okay. How about more cleavage? Can we be more realistic? We are. You said this dress code is for us, by us. This is what we want. How else are we gonna get boyfriends? That's the only thing that dictates your wardrobe? We also dress like this to intimidate other girls.
That's a problem. That's a problem. Imogen was not doing all that. She said, I just wanted to be clear that I don't have to wear a bra all the damn time if I want to. Like, it's not that deep. But yet you have girls on the other side who take these very monumental protests or these moments where it brings up conversation and they still gear it towards men and bashing other women. My eye twitches. Also tied into fashion, Allie. Allie literally altered her appearance to attract male attention at school. That's why she changed her. That's why she literally changed her outfits because of that. Allie and Manny. Manny wanted to get attention bad, and she wanted Sully's attention because she was seen as cute, per words, as Paige. And she was like, I don't want to be cute. Paige was like, just change your image. I don't think Paige expected that level from Manny. She probably just thought like, oh, maybe she'll probably just wear like a shorter dress or whatever. But Manny took it to a whole nother level. That's where it gets the toxic femininity with just like having to alter your appearance for male attention, especially to an extreme extent like that, where you have guys ogling you. That's when you finally get Sully's attention, which, ew. Also, the actor looks familiar. I think he was probably on Life with Derek at some point. Wasn't that Casey's boyfriend? I think so. Anyway, but I'm just saying, like, you see what I mean here? You see what I mean? Yeah, fun times. Moving on to another aspect of toxic femininity in a different way. I'm gonna describe it, and that is with confidence and like the mindset. And this is what I would point out with this one that's very specific. Like, I'm trying to like convey this in a way, like not being like being confident isn't a toxic isn't toxic femininity. Like, that's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is other people's behaviors and comments towards somebody being confident. So like Holly J towards Mia. As soon as Mia became a model, like, I don't care for Mia. That's just me as a person. I don't care for me as a character. Mia being a model, fine. But Holly J was so jealous that she went to the interviewers there and said like, wow, I think Mia slept her way to the top. That's where that's where the problem is that when someone is confident and doing well, you immediately tie that to they must have done something to get it. And that's what Holly J did. Holly J did exhibit toxic femininity in that aspect of shutting down a woman's success. And yes, Mia, she did sleep with Tom Blake, but also Tom Blake is a creep. So that's just a bad situation in general. But for Holly J to be that jealous and then go back around and pretty much call her a whore, pretty much, essentially, that's pretty much what she said. She said she slept her way to the top. And the thing is, that happens a lot in different departments, different fields, different careers, where they'll say a woman slept her way to the top when really they just had the credentials and they worked really hard. And if they did sleep with somebody, so what? And like, I don't understand what the issue is. Like, men do it all the time. Like, but when a woman does it, it's an issue. When a woman has a certain persona it becomes a problem. When they have certain successes, it gets diminished by them buying their way, sleeping their way to the top, or when a man and a woman are both exhibiting physical intimacy. So like Monica Lewinsky, any that kind of aspect, you always tie the women to that shame. It's always shaming a woman for certain aspects while always allowing the men to get away with it. And Holly J kind of did that with Mia. She said, oh, well, you slept your way to the top and you only got there because of Tom Blake because you slept with him. Maybe Mia's a good model. I don't know. Like, like everyone has like their celebrity crush, and Nina Dobrev was never a celebrity crush for me. But if just like talking about like the show in general, like maybe Mia is just a good model. Or maybe she just had the look at the time. Like, maybe she's just good at it. But Holly J immediately tied that to what she did. Also, Manny in general. I did create a whole video on how Manny is a mirror for a lot of girls on the show, especially with the Ellie mess of it all. Ellie being like, I'm not like other girls, and being inherently, I mean, like so deeply envious and jealous of Manny. I don't think Ellie called her a slut, but Ellie definitely had a lot of hatred towards Manny. And it's because Manny was with Craig. And also Ellie was just extremely jealous because of Manny. I mean, a lot of the female characters that were really close to Manny all exhibited these different feelings towards Manny, these very negative feelings. Darcy, Emma, Ashley, because Ashley was the one who was just like, oh, by the way, guys, these two teenagers are having a baby. Like, there were so many emotions that a lot of girls had with Manny, and I think it was just because, like, yes, Manny did become, she was part of the affair, like, yeah, she did that. And then her video with Peter and getting slut shamed after that too. And even through all of that, Manny kept her head high and she did her best to give other people grace. But girls did not give her that same back because they immediately always brought up what happened before. They always brought up her being pregnant. They brought up the video constantly. They would never let Manny just learn from her mistakes, be confident, and move on with her life. They would not let that go. They could not let her just try to flourish and just try to grow as a teenager. They always had to break her down. They always had to. Every single last one of those girls I just mentioned, all of them tore Manny down in different ways, or they looked down at her. Manny was deliberately trying to be friends with Darcy. She was just trying to be friends with Darcy. Manny is just a personable person. She's just like really bubbly. And so with her hugging Spinner, Darcy immediately was like, Like I said, this is gonna be a whole video on misogyny. I'm doing a whole separate video. But that is another aspect of toxic femininity on the show. Also, moving on to body shaming, because there was a lot of body shaming on the show. The main one that comes to mind is Darcy and Shantae towards Emma. And this was Emma's eating disorder episode. That's why we need to watch what y'all fucking say. Everybody needs to watch what the fuck they say about a woman's body. Don't say nothing about a woman's body. How about that? Just say, you look great. Everybody's like, ooh, okay. Like, stop commenting on women's bodies. Women, stop commenting on women's bodies, especially if it's in a negative way. Just stop. Just stop. Just saying like, wow, well, she let herself go. Like, oh, she definitely had kids. I can tell. Stop it. Stop it. Darcy and Shantae, when they were making those comments towards Emma of her being like, oh, I think I see an extra pound. That's the problem. Stop it. It pisses me off. It pisses me off so much. Moving on to another aspect of toxic femininity, performative docility. Sorry, that's how you pronounce it, docility. And like I said, I talked about Mrs. Edwards and how she allowed that to happen in her own house. So Marisol too, because Marisol was literally, when she was on that date with you, she was like, it just makes me feel better if I don't have to think for myself. Girl, if you don't order a cheeseburger and shut up, don't get on my nerves, okay? There's that aspect of it. It's putting other men's desires and needs before your own, to your own detriment. Claire did it with Eli. That's why she didn't break up with him the first time, because she was like, oh, I'm just so scared of what he'll do. Like if we all break up with him, like he just really cares about me. Girl, no, dump him. Because Eli was spiraling, okay? I love Claire, I do. But I do recognize that toxic femininity there of just like, oh, like I get it, he's so unhinged, but I have to save him. I have to protect him from himself. No, girl, that's not your problem. Let him go to therapy. Let him figure it out. Okay, it has nothing to do with you. It happens again with Anya and Sav. Anya wanted a committed relationship with Sav, and yes, they were committed, but Sav was never honest with his parents, and Anya could not let that go. She kept trying to make Sav admit it to his parents when she needs to admit it to herself that Sav was never going to be honest about that with his parents. She should have let that go a long time ago, but she kept doing it. She kept allowing him to get away with it. And she would just make herself mad. She would just be so mad about that instead of just breaking up with him. She hurt herself more staying than just being by herself and not being disappointed every 10 seconds by Sav. Ellie and Craig. I talked about it in my Ellie and Craig video. I don't need to go that much depth into it, but literally Ellie just put Craig above everybody else, everything else. She was totally infatuated with him, and he treated her like a dog when he was doing the stuff, and he blamed it on Manny. And Manny told her, she said, you can have him, because clearly you want him so damn bad. Have him. Go ahead and deal with the drug addict. Have fun with that. Because Ellie wanted him so bad, and Craig just never gave that to her. She went through her entire time. Well, first of all, she was Marco's beard, but literally throughout the rest of her time on Degrassi, she had always been infatuated with Craig, and he never gave her anything. I'm just saying. Also, there is downplaying your capabilities. Allie did that with all of her boyfriends. She is smart. She is brilliant. She's intelligent. But she downplayed all of her capabilities to keep a guy around. She did it with Drew. She wrote his paper. Also, never write a paper for a man. I covered that before. With Dave, same thing. She was willing to switch. She was willing to change her future for Dave. This dusty, crusty Dave, okay? Girl. And if she was gonna be, and she literally said that if she was pregnant, then they would keep the baby and she would just go to a different school. Girl, don't ever do that. Don't ever switch your plans for a man, ever. Don't do it. Don't do that. Don't break. And that was her dream. Don't change your dreams for a man because a man feels inadequate and he feels like he's gonna lose you. Okay, well then that seems like a you problem. And he still proceeds to cheat on her. Let him go. Another aspect of toxic femininity, feeling you should always have a partner.
A guy like that might actually talk to you if you weren't wearing that ridiculous uniform. Well, it's a good thing I'm here for school and not for boys.
All of Degrassi. All of the characters. Especially Ashley. Because the way Ashley talked to Terry was so fucking rude. She said, well, when you have a boyfriend, you'll know what it feels like. Well, when you have a boyfriend, you'll realize how this works. First of all, how about you start with the fact that you took E? Okay, let's start there. Let's start at the beginning. Like, stop trying to tear Terry down for not having a love interest. And then as soon as she gets a love interest, the dude is abusive. Like, you see how that's not helpful? Ashley just wasn't a good friend. She wasn't a good friend. But literally everyone on all of the girls on Degrassi all just cycled through men. And as soon as they're like, I'm gonna be by myself, immediately starts crushing on another dude every single time. And I blame that on the writers. I love you guys, but I blame y'all, because there was no way we needed that many weird relationships and things happening romantically to have a show continue on. I would have loved to have just seen more character development with other characters. Like I said, with Jenna never apologizing to Claire, I would have loved to have seen that. Like taking some accountability for ruining someone's relationship and for them to actually start to develop a real friendship. It would have made that would have been more believable towards the end in season 14 of them actually being friends if they had that discussion. But since you didn't do that, but y'all started to have all these different relationships going on, it doesn't seem real. It makes no sense. Instead of doing all these relationships, having all these girls pining after all these guys, all this relationship drama, all these guys cheating, all these guys being assholes, we could have had some actual storylines, some actual character development. But no, you had these girls pining after a guy every 10 seconds as soon as a new guy came on the screen. Because literally, as soon as Claire broke up with Eli, she was like, okay, I'm gonna start focusing on me. I'm gonna start being happy. I'm trying to, I finally got over this breakup. Here comes Jake. Love Jake, I do, but literally, y'all immediately put someone else in front of Claire. And as soon as that relationship tanks, she gets right back with Eli. I'm Claire girly, but I do recognize that. And then once that tanked, immediately her and Drew. Y'all never gave her a break in between. The only character that got like a break in between for some amount of time is Maya. And that's just because she immediately got depressed. But even then, still, like, she went from losing Cam to Zig saying that he'll always be there for her. And then literally, however much time, went by, probably a few months, then she gets interested in Miles. When Miles shows up for the summer, she has a relationship with Zig too. That tanks, but then Maya goes down that deep dark depression. And even at the end, Zig and Maya are like, they're friends. Like they're coming out on the other side of them not speaking to each other for months on end after Zig told her that he cheated on her with Zoe. That's like the only character with like gaps in between to be by herself. Other characters, there's like no gaps. Allie has like no gaps. Even with like Dallas, even though they didn't get together right away, she definitely liked him. And obviously he was pining after Allie hardcore. These girls had no break in between. Like it was always a partner. They always had to be with somebody or always have eyes on somebody every 10 freaking seconds. It was exhausting. And it still is, because it's kind of hard to remember. You're like, wait, they dated? Yes. It's like, and I get it, it's accurate because it happens in high school, but it's just so exhausting. Especially as a young adult, however you want to call me, I'm 30 years old. Like to now like look back at like being in high school, because I used to do that too, and it's so annoying. It's like, why the hell were you doing that? And then also seeing it on TV, it's like, why can't we just like have a few seconds where you're just sitting and crocheting and like listening to a podcast? I don't care, something. Like, why isn't there a break in between? It's literally exhausting. But I do want to dive into, like I just did, the characters who did it, who were victims of toxic masculinity. There are a few characters who didn't display any toxic femininity in any aspect. And this list is very short. There's only 3 that come to mind. Just like with the guys list, I only did 3. I did Toby, Wesley, and Connor, because Wesley is literally an angel. Love him. The only ones who didn't display toxic femininity are Kendra, Terry, and Liberty. the only ones who didn't, and from my memory, from me like recapping all of this, and I'm slowly like in my mind going season by season and trying to remember like each female character storyline. These are the only 3 ones I can come up with in my mind that do not display any toxic femininity. Kendra was there for 2 seconds. She had no chance to to exhibit any toxic femininity. She never once, because she was the one that caught Emma and Sean making out in the woods when they were supposed to be cleaning up the ravine. But she never went after Emma, was like, how dare you make out with the guy? You're acting like a slut. She never said anything to Emma about that. She just she said, oh, my bad. My bad, okay? And with the whole Toby relationship, she literally, once she found out that Toby was trying to pressure her into having sex, she pushed him into the locker and she's like, how old am I? 12. She's like, so then why do you think I want to sleep with you? Also, Kendra liked him, but Kendra didn't have to be up his ass 24/7. So when Toby was doing the absolute most and was like following her in class and like, doing kissy faces and all that kind of stuff, she's like, I like you, I like being around you, but I don't need to be around you 24/7. I'm gonna need you to like back up like 6 feet, please. She was able to communicate that and communicate those boundaries, and she was able to communicate to Toby. Like, yes, she was frustrated and very mad because obviously she heard that Toby was trying to pressure her to have sex. Like, I get being mad at that. She's allowed to, and she handled it the best way possible. She's like, why the fuck do I want to have sex? Like, that was handled like so beautifully. I loved it. She didn't succumb to it, been like, oh, well, I wasn't thinking about it, but yeah. She didn't do anything like that. She said, excuse you. The hell is wrong with you? Next up, Terry. Terry didn't display any toxic femininity. And I think a lot of the reason why that was because she was already an insecure character at the beginning. And also with a friend like Ashley, you don't have time to be, because Ashley's already toxic as hell. Okay. Terry was in an abusive relationship, and I do not fault her on trying to keep Rick from beating the shit out of her. This is different from Mrs. Edwards and her being subservient and submissive towards men in her life. With Randall, with Glenn, she was being very submissive. Terry was trying not to get her ass knocked out. Okay, I don't blame her on that. Okay, because I'd be scared too. Okay, and she tried her best. Like, she tried to break up with him like twice. Like, she tried to walk away, and he kept pulling her, pushing her against the wall. She said, never touch me again. And they broke up, and then they got back together because she said, well, I still love him. And that's when he put her in the coma. But she never displayed toxic femininity to me. She never targeted anybody. She never called anybody a slut or a whore. The only problem that I had was the fact that she blamed Emma for spreading the rumor when she was the one that spread the rumor in the first place. But that's not toxic femininity. That's just her being dumb and annoying. Because, girl, you're the one that started the rumor. You were listening to someone else's conversation. That's a you problem. But she's never actually done anything. She's never talked about how Ashley presents herself. She's never talked about Paige's body. She's never talked about any of these characters. She's never body shamed. She's never done anything besides be a friend to at least try to be a friend to these bitches. She's tried to be a friend, and Ashley just made it really, really hard. And when Ashley was happy to go on a date with Sean, but at the same time she was, obviously Jimmy was still trying to flirt with her, and she was still into Jimmy even though they weren't together. Tara was just I think you just need to cool it. She didn't try to tell Ashley what to do. She didn't say, you're acting like a slut, you're acting like a whore, you're acting like this. She didn't say that. She just said, just be cool. Just be cool, because it's getting weird now. I get it, you want to go out with Sean, cool, but keep it copacetic, keep it chill. And so when Paige mentioned that Jimmy was trying to get back with Ashley, Terry felt like she had a right to say that, well, she's going on a date with Sean. And I don't blame her on that, because it's like, hold on, wait a minute. Paige and them took it too far because they said, oh, well. And that's when Jimmy called her a slut. See? But Terry had nothing to do with that. Terry was just trying to help her out to not get caught up in some mess, and Ashley still got caught up in some mess. Terry was trying to be a nice friend, and it just backfired on her several times. Another character, like the other character, Liberty. Liberty deliberately has never... she was annoyed with seeing with Manny's underwear. Like she was very much like a by the book type of character. But she did that with everybody. She said no hitting in the halls, even when like JT and Toby like slapped each other. She said that's against the code of conduct, like no violence or whatever. And it's just like a little slap. But she wasn't like deliberately calling Manny a slut or a whore. She didn't like. She didn't target anyone. She didn't do anything. And with the whole Mia situation, she didn't call Mia out on anything because she had a baby young. So she couldn't say nothing anyway. She was more mad at JT for moving on with somebody else, especially someone who physically has their child, while she gave their baby up for adoption. She was just mad at JT. She wasn't deliberately mad at Mia at all. She was mad with JT. Even JT called her out on it. But she never like targeted another girl. She's never done anything with any aspect of toxic femininity. She's never been like submissive. She's never been one to also be like on the other side of it and completely control somebody. She was pregnant, okay, when she was pissed at JT, okay? She was hormonal. That's different from how Emma treats people, okay? That's completely different. But Liberty never experienced toxic femininity. She never displayed it. And yeah, what's the point of this video? Just wanted to talk about toxic femininity and toxic masculinity within the show, and different aspects of it, and behaviors shown to the characters. Just really like get into the, you know, the meat and bones and stuff when it comes to Degrassi, like I did with my cheating video, with the manipulation video. This is not to bash the show entirely, but there are a lot of things on the show that lead to conversations and discussions when it comes to all aspects of the show. Amazing show, still love it, but definitely there are a lot of problems with a lot of these characters, a lot of toxic masculinity, and quite a bit of toxic femininity as well. If you like this video, be sure to like it, comment below anything I may have missed, or any things that you have noticed when it comes to toxic femininity or toxic masculinity when it comes to the characters that I did not mention, because I can't cover everything. Otherwise, we'll be here for 30 years. Okay, just as long as the show. I also didn't mention anything from Degrassi Junior High and Degrassi High because I do not have the mental capacity of remembering all of that, plus Degrassi and onward. So yeah, so if you remember anything from Degrassi Junior High and Degrassi High that, you know, are examples of toxic masculinity and toxic femininity, please put that in the comments below. But until next time, you guys, stay magical. Love you guys. Bye. Mwah.